Welcome back. I'm Anastasia, a trauma therapist, owner of Happy Mind Wellness Company, Colorado-based therapy practice, and creator of this podcast. My mission is to build a community of acceptance and authenticity. I needed some adventure buddies for this journey of insight, and I am so glad it's you. You are all welcome here, and I'm grateful you decided to join me. I've also got a Pomeranian today for those of you watching in video. This is Dr. Douglas Puff. He will probably get sick of being in my lap partway through this. Before we get started, I wanted to take a moment to thank one of my partners, Occupied Mind. Today, I am wearing my How You Feel is How You Heal shirt from Occupied Mind because we are talking about holding space and feeling your feelings, and it is a challenging and uncomfortable experience. But it's a powerful one. Occupied Mind's goal, which you can read about more on their website, is to create a sanctuary of self-expression, a place where individuality is celebrated and true selves are embraced. Their belief is simple yet profound. Everyone deserves to feel at home in their own skin. We share that dream, which is why I support them, and my closet is slowly turning into an Occupied Mind showroom. Use code INSIGHTSWITHUS15 at checkout to find a shirt that speaks your mind and bears your soul. That's OCTOPIEDMIND.com. Be authentically you. As a disclaimer, there may be swearing in this podcast, but sometimes we get caught up in the human experience. It happens, and sometimes we can talk about difficult or activating topics. So put on some headphones if you need to, and remember that support exists for you if you want it. Today, I am going to call out some of the misgivings in our Western society that has led to a gap in understanding around emotional labor, especially across different genders. I explicitly said Western culture because that's the one I live in right now, and that's the one that I have the majority of experience working with. I would love to hear more from our listeners across the world about what this might look like in your culture or in your country. Initially, I was just going to chat today without a script, but honestly, I had so many ideas, thoughts, and examples that I ended up creating a script accidentally and then rewriting it about 1,000 times. This is a complicated and layered topic that really depends on who you are, what relationship you're in, and how you show up in the world. I am going to talk about a couple different aspects of emotional labor and how miscommunications around it can lead to conflict within relationships. This is basically an episode about what can go wrong from a scaled back and more simplistic view. If you have any further questions, please send them to me at insightswithus@gmail.com or send me a message on Instagram at insightswithuspodcast, and I'll do my best to answer them, either in a separate episode, do a deeper dive into an episode, or just send you a message back. There is a good chance that I might ruffle some feathers today. Know that I am doing it from a place of love and from a place of deep respect. But I also think that this conversation is incredibly important and it's not being said out loud enough. If you feel hurt or offended by anything I say, be curious if it's because you feel you're being called out and therefore it might be time for some insight, or if you feel like what I'm saying has nothing to do with you. In that case, it might not, but you could take this information and support and lift others up as you help them learn. Either way, if what I say brings something up in you, maybe bring it to a therapist and process it further. This episode is not a replacement for therapy. It is just a sharing of ideas. In my discussion today, I'm going to be focusing on heteronormative relationships because they tend to have the largest contrast when it comes to emotional labor and communicating. In fact, research shows that queer relationships tend to do this better than non-queer relationships because the societal norms around what a queer relationship looks like are more fuzzy. So basically, you get to make up your own rules rather than follow the societal norm. So if you're straight, go find yourself an LGBTQIA mentor who can help you figure this out. It is time to enact the buddy system. It's going to make the world a better place in so many different ways. But I digress. We are going to talk about emotional labor, the feminist wave and what it missed, this new idea of man-keeping, which is an old system that finally got a name, intention versus impact, and I might go on some tangents if the mood strikes me. We'll see. But I'm going to do my best to share examples from my life around how these miscommunications can show up. I also want to remind everyone that any example I share is only from my perspective. I am not claiming to know what went through anyone's head, but these are experiences that I have been through, and I have decided to share today so that you had a better idea of what I'm talking about. In fact, some of the biggest miscommunications happen because the people involved are having completely different experiences and don't know how to shift their perspective to understand how it feels for the other person. Also, Puff is grunting, so if you can hear him in the background, that's him trying to breathe. He's a little cutie. Yes, you are. Mwah. So let's be real. It's easier to understand concepts when they are put into concrete examples and images. So I am here to deliver that neatly packaged, upsetting gift to your doorstep, or rather, your listening device. You're welcome. So, all of that said, what the fuck is emotional labor? Emotional labor is basically just maintaining the relationship or managing the emotions of the relationship. This can look like a lot of different things. It is being able to notice the small details within your relationship or friendship that tell you how the other person is doing, and then reacting accordingly without them having to tell you what's going on. It's noticing if your partner is stressed or tired or overwhelmed and prioritizing their rest for them, sometimes over your own, so that they can feel better, even if they didn't ask for it. It is being the first one to bring up feeling stressed or hurt by something and wanting to process it to move forward together. If bringing it up ends in a fight or one or both of you shutting down, the person doing the emotional labor is the one who bridges the gap after the fact, gets uncomfortable and tries to figure it out with the other person. And the one who isn't used to doing the emotional work is the one who moves on and pretends like or actually believes that everything is okay just because the fight about it is over. This has literally happened to me multiple times in multiple relationships, and it is so hurtful and upsetting when the other person expects me to hold the hurt for the relationship and act externally like everything is fine. So let me give you an example of this. I was camping with a now ex and a bunch of friends once, and there was a small miscommunication that happened where I was leading the group somewhere and he needed to stop to adjust something and I didn't notice. He was fine and safe the whole time, which I made sure to confirm immediately the second I realized he had fallen behind. My ex blew up about this and said some incredibly hurtful things. He said that this is why he knows he can't trust me and he will never be able to depend on me ever again because I didn't have eyes in the back of my head and stopped later than he wanted me to wait for him. Those words devastated me. I was hurt, I was angry, and we didn't talk for the rest of the day. By his design, not mine. I wanted to figure it out. He wanted to just move on and forget about it, but like in a mean, angry way. There was no processing. He had zero interest in understanding what was going on for me. Just complete silence. And then the next morning, he woke me up with a kiss and talked about how grateful he was for me, how happy he was in our relationship, and put on this huge bubbly persona as a show to our friends. I couldn't do that. And then I spent the rest of that day confused and hurt and couldn't believe that he wanted to just move on after saying such hurtful things to me. So hurtful that I still have them in my head to this day. He then went to one of our friends we were camping with and said that I was mad at the friend and we should be adults and talk it out and not just ignore it like children. Oh, the irony of this. My friend then came to check on me and I burst into tears because I wasn't mad at them at all. And I couldn't believe that my ex pushed his emotions down so hard that he couldn't comprehend that I would still be upset. It was my job to hold the hurt, to hold the discomfort, and to do the work to help his dream reality, where everything was fine, exist. There is a reason this relationship did not last. There was no shared emotional labor. An important factor in why this kind of dynamic exists is that the feminist wave forgot about men. Initially, men were supposed to be the providers for the family, and women were supposed to keep the family alive. When women fought for their right to vote, to work, to open a bank account, to own their own home, this was an important and amazing shift in history, but we forgot to fight for men's rights to be in the home, to be a caregiver, to be emotional, to take care of the kids, to take care of us. So if women are showing up strong, powerful, and independent, and a man's main job is to provide, well, then it makes sense that a lot of men feel like their identities are at stake. They don't know how to show up differently. They weren't told they were allowed to. My ex took on the role of provider and struggled to be anything else. But I didn't need him to be a provider. I needed him to be a partner. And we need to fight for men's right to be human so that they don't have to just be providers anymore. We need a new name for this wave, this fight that we are in for men's right to be human. And within relationships, I've started calling it mindful monogamy. I want all of us to stop assuming or defaulting who is going to do what work in and out of the home, and assume how people are supposed to show up in that role. Don't assume the work that will be done by your partner just because you're tired or stressed, because your partner gets tired and stressed too. I promise you, they do it. So I'm going to give you a new idea. It's going to take a moment to sink in. Are you ready to have your mind blown? The goal is to actually talk so that you're on the same page about who does what doing the task actually looks like, and what rest looks like for each of you. We want to make sure that it is equitable all the way around for everyone involved. So let's explore what this means with another example. When I first moved in with my current partner, which is going really well in case any of you were wondering, I'm very happy, but we're both human, which means there are miscommunications and things are getting missed sometimes in our relationship. We're still figuring out how to exist together in space. But we had talked about how important rest was for the both of us when we first moved in. But we never actually talked about what it looked like. And this came back to bite me in the ass. My partner has a video game that he really loves, which is amazing. But when he starts playing, he gets lost in it, and the rest of the world completely disappears. On paper, I love this for him. But what it meant in reality is he is gone in his own world for 6 to 8 hours at a time. It's less now. We've worked on it. This is the equivalent of someone going golfing for the day or spending all day Sunday watching football. Puff, are you crying? Good boy. I want to support him in having this recharge time. It is so important for him, and I love that he has it. But I started to struggle because I never got that kind of recharge time too. When he would be checked out for an entire day, it meant that I couldn't. If our dog, Juliet, needed anything, I'm the one stopping my rest to take care of her, to deal with barking at squirrels, to cook meals, to clean the house, to answer the door if some random person stopped by. I only have hobbies that I can stop in the middle of because I always needed to stop in the middle of them. I don't have the luxury of checking out for 6 to 8 hours. And the research backs this up. Most women have hobbies that are either productive for the home, like baking, sewing, DIY, or can be easily paused, crocheting, coloring, gardening. While men's hobbies typically allow them to completely check out and focus on themselves for the duration, going to play sports, playing a video game, disappearing into the garage to work on a car or a motorcycle. And even if my partner wasn't playing his game, if I was trying to check out and recharge, when we first moved in together, he would often interrupt me himself to ask questions about where something was or what the plan was or what it is that Juliet needed. I was in charge of keeping all of it in my head, and it was my responsibility to stay present all of the time, even when it was my turn to relax. When I brought this to his attention, his immediate response was to get defensive for several days. We couldn't talk about it because he heard it and told me that he heard it, as I was upset that he was playing his game. This was not the problem. I want him to play his game. But if he spends an entire day checking out, then he needs to find an equivalent time to check in so that I can check out. I want it to feel equitable, and I want him to be able to take on some of that mental load so that it does feel shared, so that I can trust that I can check out. And we did eventually get on the same page about this, and he has improved significantly in being able to know what's going on without having to ask me. But I do still struggle to trust that I can check out or go somewhere and leave Jules behind. And often when I think about trying to do that, he also wants to play his game. So instead of advocating for myself, which is something that I need to work on also, I just accept that he's going to play his game and end up figuring it all out on my own. I will coordinate daycare or focus on Juliet and all the household tasks first and spend hours setting my day up so that I get a few hours of hobby time without having to bother him or get him to check back in. I hold the mental load and the emotional labor so that he can rest and feel recharged. And then I give myself an hour or two here or there when I can sneak rest into my schedule. My dream, hint, hint, is that someday he can notice that I am stressed or tired and have not yet actively shut down with a migraine, or he's noticed that I've been doing a lot and he prioritizes my rest for me. Like the roles are reversed, that he makes sure that I check out before my body shuts down on me and I have to stop. We are strong, but we're not quite there yet. Another factor in the uneven emotional labor is this newer term that is going around. It is called man keeping. Basically, how women are the caregivers for men and don't want to be anymore. But this is a double-edged sword, because if a man does the work, goes to therapy, is more in touch with his emotions and needs, he will suddenly have more needs. If we do not shift the emotional labor and mental load as this healing happens, it can feel like the man is more emotional and just placing extra pressure on his partner. This isn't fair to either person. I want men to be in touch with their emotions. Let them exist and understand and be able to name what their needs are. But I also want them to learn how to hold it for themselves or reach out to friends for support rather than only leaning on their partner because it's the only safe space for them to feel it. Or not feel it and just expect the partner to hold it. Just like my episode on values, we need to figure out what is yours and what is theirs. Women have been taught over decades and generations by society that it is our job to be the caregiver, and men have been taught that it is their job to be the provider, which means if a man is stressed, the woman needs to help him be less stressed. But if the woman is stressed, she needs to figure that out on her own and not put it on him because he is busy providing for her. Because of this societal view, when a man is more emotional, some women get really uncomfortable with it, even if it's unintentional, and may even think some of those phrases that I love to hate. Be strong, stop crying, suck it up. I thought you were a man. This isn't fair to men. They are allowed to cry. Men are allowed to hurt, and men are allowed to have needs. Women, men are human too. We need to normalize that men are caregivers too. And this emotional support can go both ways. If we can fight for men's right to be caregivers, that means that they are then able to lean on other men, that their friend groups can be a space to check in around how they're feeling and invite them to cry it out. Men being more mindful means they won't just immediately dump on their partner and expect them to hold it. Men being more human means women will have to step up and let it be okay that men cry too. And I'm going to be real with you. I also had to work on this. I grew up in that societal norm. And that's why I have the pleasure of being with an emotionally open and incredible man. When he has a hard day and wants to cry, there is a conditioned part of my brain that is like, wait, is this okay? Should he be emoting like this? And I know that that voice isn't telling the truth. So I look at him and I hug him and I play with his hair and I make sure that he feels loved because he is a human too, with human emotions and needs, and he needs love and reassurance. Anyone who believes that a strong man doesn't need to be held has not gone deep enough or vulnerable enough to realize that every single one of us needs that, no matter how strong we are. And I have said this before, and all of the women that I say this to, stereotypically, are like, oh my God, yeah, that makes so much sense. And the men that I say it to are like, what you talking about? Like, fuck you, I hate this. But because men societally are not allowed to feel their feelings, are not allowed to be caregivers, are not allowed to have this softness within them, it starts getting beat out of them about 3, 4, 5 years old. Most memories of where that conditioning starts is between 3 to 5. And so the way I like to see it is that part of men got stunted right around that age. So what we need to do is let those emotions exist as a 3-year-old, as a 4-year-old, as a 5-year-old, and allow the emotional intelligence for those that had to go through that experience of pushing it down and not being allowed to feel. We need to let them be a child. We need to let their emotions grow up into adulthood and not just exist as an adult immediately. You can't just jump all that time. If you got stalled at 3 and never learned how to feel your feelings, well, then you need to be talked to like you're a 3-year-old. You need to be taught how to name your feelings, what a feeling is, how to feel your feelings, so that you can then get into the complicated nuance of caregiving and showing up in a relationship where the emotional labor is equitable. It is complicated. It is layered. And if you were never allowed to feel that, even as a child, it's going to take you a minute to learn how to feel that. It's okay. It's a part of this fight for mindful monogamy and mindful masculinity. I am here for it. So I'm going to give you 2 examples of this man keeping from my first long-term relationship. One of the examples is going to be more severe, and one is going to be less so. So I'm doing this so that you can understand the spectrum with which emotional labor and man keeping can exist. So this guy, my ex, he was my awkward jock. That's what I call him in my head. We met in high school. He had a really kind heart. He was really fun, but he also had a lot of patterns that were really harmful to him and to our relationship. He would say whatever he thought I wanted to hear to make me happy, but then would explode out if something was difficult for him or didn't go the way he wanted, because he was raised to be strong and not have feelings. Notice where we're going with this? So we were in a long distance relationship for a long time, including when I first started college and he was in the military. I have this memory of awkward jock being upset at me, insulting me, putting me down, calling me names because I chose to go to a co-ed school rather than follow him around the world. And he was mad that he couldn't keep an eye on me. And yes, this was his language, not mine. For me, I went to the school that I wanted to go to. I didn't care if it was co-ed or not. It's what I wanted to study. It's where I wanted to be. I chose that to set myself up for my future. He didn't care about any of that. And if you remember my conflict episode, there was a lot of contempt in this past relationship of mine. But I was naive and I thought it was my job and therefore healthy to manage his feelings for him, to manage this upset. And I remember thinking how great a communicator I was and how good of a job I was doing in the relationship because he would verbally attack me and make me feel like shit. And then I would shut down and refuse to talk to him for a day or two because he just needed to cool down. This was a part of our communicating system. It was healthy. It was fine. And then when I tried to talk to him again, he would open up about how he's lonely and sad and he misses me. And he didn't mean to yell or accuse me of cheating on him. He was just insecure and needed extra reassurance. I thought I was a genius for figuring out how to get him to open up and process his feelings. In reality, I was a punching bag, and he would sprinkle in these moments of vulnerability to keep me close. I wasn't helping him process his feelings. I was processing his feelings for him. We were together for almost 8 years, and that took a toll on me. I reached a point where I couldn't hold his emotions anymore. And when I started to realize that it wasn't healthy and I was pulling away, it wasn't what I wanted, Awkward Jock started calling me regularly, like daily for weeks kind of regular, and threatening suicide if I broke up with him. This attempt at holding me hostage with his emotions backfired, fortunately, and it was the wake-up call that I needed. I ended up breaking up with him mostly because of these calls. Not everyone reacts this way. Some people believe it and stay in that relationship and continue to do all that emotional labor and man-keeping. That pain was his to hold, not mine. Neither of us were happy, and I could not be his only support system and coping tool when he was struggling. And don't worry, I know for a fact, at least because of me, he did not kill himself. He is still around as far as I know. And about a month after I broke up with him, he met someone else, moved in with her, and they have a bunch of dogs together. So I really don't know where he's at now, but we were definitely better off not staying together. Another less serious example of man-keeping was when Awkward Jock and I went snowboarding together. He made this big deal about how he wanted to learn how to do S-turns, but he was really struggling to figure out the balance of it. So every time he started to turn, he'd fall flat on his face. He was getting really frustrated and upset, so I stuck with him. I was reassuring him, I was keeping him company, stopping every time he fell so that he didn't feel alone in the frustration. And to make himself feel better, he started pointing out how much I was stopping and making his frustration about me and my failures. He was saying things along the lines of, "You seem to be struggling more than me. Look at how much you're stopping. You can't even snowboard, can you?" He didn't even notice that I was going slow and stopping for him, to keep him company, because I was the one holding his emotions for him. I smiled and said, "Okay, I'm going to keep going then." And I left Awkward Jock in my dust. I snowboarded down this peaceful slope alone in the Alps for like 10, 15 minutes. And then the guilt set in. I shouldn't have left him. He was just frustrated. I should be there for him, even if he was rude to me. I'm not going to go back up the hill, but I'll sit and I'll wait for him and I'll make sure he's all right. Like 20 minutes later, he finally caught back up to me. And do you know what he said? It was not how impressed he was at my ability or apologizing for not realizing how supportive I was being. He was upset at me for leaving him and told me how hurt he was that I wouldn't keep him company while he was trying to figure out a new skill. I apologized and spent the rest of the day right by his side, guiding him through his frustrations. Man-keeping doesn't have to be a big or abusive moment. It really could be this small day-to-day experience that just builds up over time, where one partner is upset and overwhelmed and the other partner is trying to regulate their nervous system for them, takes on the discomfort for them, and holds their hand through the experience, to the point that the upset partner might not even realize that it's happening. On the more extreme end of the spectrum, it could be more abusive. It could be their partner being a punching bag, blaming them for every uncomfortable feeling. So how do we start to navigate this? How do we change this dynamic? It isn't easy. The first step is to notice that it exists. If you are someone who struggles to hold your emotions, or if, as you heard my examples, realize that you might blame your partner for more than their fair share of an interaction, you need to be able to notice when you do this. And if you can't slow down in the moment to notice it, you might be dissociating in the discomfort, and you might want to go to therapy and work on that first. Work on slowing down and grounding yourself in the moment so that you can notice what's going on. If you're the partner who does the man keeping, you need to start noticing when you are taking on more than what belongs to you. Second, you need to realize that you can sit in uncomfortable situations or emotions even if you aren't used to it or hate the feeling. You can survive it, really, and you won't get stuck in it forever. You'll get stuck in it for a little bit, or at least just sit in it for a little bit, but it won't last. You can actually sit in sadness and cry and then continue with your life once the moment is over. It's actually better for you and your system to move through it as soon as you can, instead of pushing it down and holding on to it until it explodes onto someone else or shows up as chronic illness. If something isn't going the way that you'd like my snowboarding example, you can be frustrated and angry that you can't figure it out without taking it out on your partner. My ex literally could have just said something like, I am feeling really frustrated by this, and I know it's not your fault, but I want you to know I'm feeling more irritable and I might snap at you. I'm not doing it intentionally, and if you need space while I'm figuring this out, that's okay. Go take some time. And then actually let your partner walk away and take some time if that's what they need. It is not their job to be frustrated with you or fix it so that you're not frustrated anymore. If they want to keep you company, if they're able to keep you company, great. That's some bonus love. Take it, love it, appreciate it, thank them for it. But it is not their job to stay by your side and take on that frustration for you. For many, especially with hard pasts, feeling frustration or anger from a loved one can be really activating. Thanks to Awkward Jock, anytime anyone raises their voice, even if it isn't at me, I do get a little activated. My heart rate increases, and I think I've done something wrong, even though logically I know that I haven't. It takes a lot of work for me to stay present and to be supportive when one of these difficult emotions show up in my loved ones. And this isn't so much a problem in the therapy world because I'm in the headspace for therapy. It's when it's out of context, out of my job, in my personal life. So this is going to lead me to the next idea that is really important to have curiosity around, which is, what is the intention of what was said or done versus what was the impact of it? And which one are you paying attention to? If I am expecting my partner to come home from work and I want him to focus on me, give me a lot of hugs, cook with me, dance around the kitchen with me so that we can laugh and connect together, but maybe he's had a rough day. So instead, he comes home, gives me a quick kiss, changes, sits down on his video game, and he's gone in his own world the rest of the day. His intention might be, I'm exhausted. I can't focus on anything. I really just need to check out for a moment so that I can feel better. But the impact of his actions on me might be that I become more anxious. I start worrying that he's mad at me. I overthink all of our past interactions and try to figure out what led to this slight. I get upset at him for not giving me context, and then suddenly I'm the one pulling away and I'm ignoring him, thinking that I'm ignoring him back. Now let's say, hypothetically, that I'm a couples therapist who works hard on communicating and checking in. So I go to him and I let him know that I'm confused by how he acted when he got home, and maybe even name that I'm feeling somewhat hurt because I wanted to spend time with him. He now has two options here. He can focus on his intention, or he can be curious about the impact. Most people tend to focus on their intention because it's their experience. They know it well. And that would look like, well, I didn't mean to hurt you. I just had a really hard day. Why am I not allowed to come home and relax and recharge? I didn't do anything wrong. Notice how defensive that sounds, because there were good intentions, or at least neutral intentions, in his actions. He is justified in feeling like he didn't do anything wrong. Technically, he didn't. However, defensiveness is one of the 4 horsemen of the relationship apocalypse, and we want to try to avoid creating this wedge of miscommunication. If you have read anything by the Gottman Institute or listened to my conflict episode, you know that an antidote for defensiveness is taking responsibility. This is the second option in this example. Acknowledge the impact, even if it wasn't your intention, before you share your intention. My partner could listen to my experience and say something like, "Oh, I can understand why you would think I was ignoring you or upset at you. I really did just come home and disappear, didn't I? I am so sorry for how that came across. And I want you to know that I didn't mean it. I had a really hard day and I wasn't thinking about how it would impact you. I'll try to give you that context in the future so you know where my head is at." And then I would feel validated. I would be able to understand his headspace because he acknowledged my impact first and didn't get immediately defensive, which would make me feel unheard. And then, if he chose that route, I would feel better. I would want to support him. I would want him to continue to check out and play video games because clearly he needs it if he comes home and ignores me without even noticing. In this example, he owned his headspace. He didn't expect me to take care of his feelings for him. He let me know what was going on and advocated for what his need was so that I could support him in that need. I didn't have to hold his upset for him. Another way to navigate man-keeping and emotional labor is to recognize and truly believe that all time is created equal. I want to tie this idea back to mindful monogamy. Do not assume who is going to take on what role in your relationship, and do not assume what done means for your partner because you likely have different definitions. Again, our goal is to talk through all of it, figure out what works, and name what needs to be flexible depending on busyness or headspaces. We all only have 24 hours in a day. So if you come home from work tired and need to rest, that's fine. But if you come home from work tired and need to rest, so you decide that your partner needs to be the one to cook, clean, take care of the kids, walk the dog, grab you drinks because you're tired and don't want to stand up, and you had a hard day, well, then what you're saying is your downtime is more important than your partner's downtime. You don't care if they spend all of their time cooking and cleaning because at least you get to rest. There are tasks in a house that no one likes doing. No one likes cooking every meal, or cleaning all the dishes every time, or constantly doing the laundry, or having to clean the bathrooms. They get nasty. It's gross. So if your reaction is, well, I don't like doing it, so I'll just leave it to you, well, then you are assuming that your partner's time is worth less than yours, which is why they can do the hard tasks for you, or the tedious tasks for you, because it's better that you don't do it, so they'll just do it. Research shows that women tend to take on the more consistent household tasks like decluttering, cooking, sweeping, dusting, wiping down counters, changing diapers, putting away toys, planning and coordinating schedules for the family. The majority of the tasks that have to happen every day, sometimes multiple times a day. Men tend to take the tasks that can happen once a week or less. Mowing the lawn, taking out the trash, fixing something if it breaks. That's awesome that both of you are taking on tasks around the house, but again, look at how long it takes you to do all of those tasks and wonder, is your time created equal? Is the labor equitable? I work from home and I have shorter hours, so I am going to take on most of the decluttering and daily cleaning tasks. But in the first few months of living together, I would spend all of my free time taking on all of this work. And then my partner would come home tired and sit on the couch and relax. In his mind, he would take care of his stuff on a day over the weekend. I was not okay with this, that I was constantly doing stuff all of the time, and the stuff that he had taken on, he only had to do once a week. Wait, can we swap? I want to be able to relax at the end of the day. So we had a conversation about this very early on. I was not going to break myself just so he could sit at the end of the day most days and only had to check into work once or twice a week. He is not the provider in our relationship. He is my partner. He is a teammate. And therefore, our work around the house, emotionally, mentally, was going to be shared. And we aren't perfect. We are all human, which means we shift back and forth within these patterns, especially if we get busy. It is easy to fall back into what feels most comfortable for us, like not sharing the mental load. That's why it's important to talk about it, to not make assumptions about what's going to get done, but also not make assumptions about what the intention is, just because it's the impact. It is important to name anytime something comes up so that you can be mindful together about how you hold your emotions and how you share the labor. Stop making assumptions and start asking questions so that you can create a new language and set of expectations that work within your unique relationship together. Hopefully something we talked about today resonated with you. If it did, let yourself sit with that idea for a little while longer. If you have any questions for this podcast or any themes you'd like us to focus on in the future, send us a message on Instagram at Insights With Us Podcast, or send us an email at insightswithus@gmail.com. If you enjoyed this podcast and want to hear more, please follow, like, or subscribe. If you want to support the continuation of this podcast, you can donate. To do so, find me, Anastasia Soroka, on buymeacoffee.com. You can also find Insights With Us on Substack for exclusive content, including videos and other writings about my insight journey. You can find digital downloads on my website, happymindwellness.com. Thank you for being my adventure buddy. I appreciate all of you, and I appreciate you being here. Thank you for creating insight with us. And to end, I want to thank my other partners, the Pelvic People, brand new collab. Everyone's bodies are different, and how we connect bodies, I'm talking pleasure here, should not be painful. Whether you want to have fun with yourself or with another person, the Pelvic People are a group of healthcare providers creating products to help your body heal and find your own path to pleasure. I am talking both internal and external work. For me, I appreciate the external massager because my glutes and psoas do not know how to release. And if you didn't know, everything is connected. Whole body health, everyone. That is what we're going for. So if you are tight in one place, you are probably tight somewhere else. You're not alone. And if you struggle to let go and find pleasure in your sex life, check out the Pelvic People. That's ThePelvicPeople.com. ThePelvicPeople.com. Use code InsightsWithUs7 for $7 at checkout.